They told you to be a good boy, be nice, be quiet, wait your turn. They never told you what it takes to become a legend. But you already know deep inside that staying soft, passive, and confused won't take you anywhere worth going. So if you're tired of just being a boy in a world full of men who dominate, listen closely. Do these 7 things and you won't just grow up, you'll become the man everyone remembers. Every boy thinks he'll become a man by accident, but legends aren't born, they're built brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. If you don't do these 7 things, you'll die unknown. Just another what if in the crowd. Every young man carries a moment deep inside him when he looks in the mirror and knows something has to change. Not just his looks, not just his performance. Everything, his posture, his presence, his patterns, and yet most ignore that call. They chase ease, not evolution. They pretend that manhood arrives with time. It doesn't. It arrives with pressure. With fire, with pain, boys grow into men the same way coal becomes a diamond, under relentless discomfort. And if that discomfort isn't voluntary, life will eventually force it. So why wait? Why not? Choose the furnace now instead of waiting for life to throw you in later. The truth is simple. Nothing grows without resistance, and yet the modern boy is trained to avoid it. He's handed convenience from day one. Click a button, food arrives. Open your phone, instant praise. Search a name, validation without effort. But what does that create? A soft core, a fragile identity, a man who breaks at the first sign of adversity, because when comfort is your default, discomfort feels like death. But for the few who choose discomfort, something different happens. They don't fear it. They become it. They mold themselves in it until pain isn't punishment, it's preparation. Waking up early when no one's watching isn't about a motivational quote. It's about discipline you can't fake. It's about dragging yourself out of bed when your body begs for another hour. It's about honoring the grind even when you hate it. That choice made again and again separates boys from men, because comfort whispers every morning. It tells you that sleep is success, that skipping one day won't matter, that you've earned a break. But discomfort is honest. It doesn't lie to you. It doesn't pamper you. It tells you if you stay in bed, you stay behind. Think about training, not showing up to the gym when you're sore. That's comfort. Lifting through the soreness, that's growth. Pushing past shaking arms, the burning legs, the pounding chest, that's not just physical. That's mental construction. Every rep that hurts is not pain. It's proof that you're moving, that you're progressing, that your threshold is expanding. And while others stop when it gets hard, legends begin when it gets hard, because that's when the real transformation starts. Not when it's easy, but when everything in you wants to quit, and you don't. The same applies to food, to habits, to discipline. Anyone can follow a diet when they're motivated, but when cravings hit, when you're hungry and tired and emotionally drained, that's where the battle is. A boy breaks, a man bends, a legend bites down, embraces the hunger, and says, good. Let it sharpen me. Comfort says, you deserve a cheat meal. Discomfort says, prove that you deserve the results first. One makes you feel good now, the other makes you unrecognizable later. Choose wisely, and let's talk about rejection. Most boys crumble at the first no. They avoid taking risks, avoid putting themselves out there. They fear discomfort like it's a monster. But men, legends, they use rejection like fuel. They step into discomfort on purpose, because every awkward conversation, every hard truth, every painful loss teaches them how to endure, how to lead, how to rise. If you've never been embarrassed, humiliated, or doubted, then you've never really been in the arena. You're still in the crowd, and no legend was ever made from the stands. Relationships are no different. Boys avoid hard talks. They run from accountability. They'd rather ghost someone than confront their shortcomings. But men lean into the difficult conversations. They don't flinch when emotions get raw. They don't escape, they engage, because they know real intimacy, real loyalty, real leadership comes from facing discomfort, not avoiding it. A man who can't handle emotional weight will never be trusted with real responsibility, and discomfort in your relationships reveals whether you lead with courage or hide with excuses. It's the same at work, in business, in purpose. Boys chase passion, men chase mastery. One waits to feel inspired. The other shows up even when it's boring, when it's draining, when it's monotonous, because comfort makes you believe that success should be fun. Discomfort reveals that success is built through repetition, frustration, and delayed gratification. You don't become legendary by doing what feels good. You become legendary by doing what must be done, even when your emotions scream for escape. Especially then, most boys hide behind distraction, video games, scrolling, binge watching, not because those things are evil, but because they're easy. They numb the voice inside that's screaming for greatness. But men, they sit in silence. They listen to that voice. They let it scream, and then they act. That silence is discomfort. Sitting with your own thoughts, not easy. Facing the reality of your wasted time, brutal. But until you confront that, you'll keep hiding behind screens, behind fake dopamine, behind fake progress. And nothing legendary was ever built on lies. Discomfort isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with applause. It's dirty, it's painful, it's lonely. It's waking up earlier than your friends. It's sacrificing pleasure for purpose. It's doing reps when no one sees. But over time, something magical happens. You stop craving applause. You start craving growth. You stop chasing approval. You start chasing edge. You stop fearing failure. You start fearing mediocrity, and then you rise quietly, consistently, ruthlessly. You don't need someone to hand you a blueprint. You need to embrace the battle. You need to stop flinching when life punches first. You need to show up when motivation disappears, when everything hurts, when it's all falling apart, because that's when the separation happens. Boys wait for the perfect moment. Legends make the moment perfect, with sweat, with sacrifice, with scars, and discomfort isn't just about action. It's about identity. Choosing discomfort daily rewires how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone trying to get better. You start identifying as someone who doesn't stop. It's a shift, a silent one, but it echoes in everything you do. You walk differently, speak differently, lead differently, because discomfort has carved out the weakness. It's stripped away the excuses. It's burned off the lies, and all that's left is the real you, the one no one believed in, the one they ignored, the one they underestimated, the one who now can't be denied. It's not a one-time thing. It's daily, and you'll want to quit. There will be mornings where your body says no, where your mind says stop, where the world says rest, and still you go. Because legends aren't born in their best moments. They're built in their worst. When pain is loud, when the results are invisible, when the fatigue is crushing, that's where the identity is forged. You see, boys break under pressure, men bend. Legends don't just endure pressure. They become the pressure. They walk into rooms and raise the standard, not because they're special, but because they've suffered. They've embraced the grind that others fear. They've become calloused, not cold, disciplined, not detached. Every scar, every failure, every setback, they carry it like armor, not shame. So if you're wondering how to become something more, how to leave the boy behind and step into something stronger, the answer is never motivation, never comfort. It's pain, purposeful, voluntary, ruthless discomfort. It's setting the alarm and keeping the promise. It's facing the hard truth and acting anyway. It's rejecting the easy path and choosing the one that breaks you. Because every day you choose discomfort is another day you bury the boy and summon the man, and eventually that man becomes something else, something rare, something remembered, a legend, not because he was better, but because he never took the easy way out, and neither will you, but silence. Silence isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of control. There's a quiet that commands more power than a shout ever could, and when you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop needing to be understood, that's when you start becoming undeniable. Boys chase attention because they haven't built proof. They need the world to notice them because they haven't yet noticed themselves. But when you've done the real work, when you've climbed through mental war zones alone, when you've buried excuses with your bare hands, you don't need to announce anything. Your presence says what your voice never could. In a world obsessed with validation, the man who doesn't beg for it becomes a rare breed. There's nothing louder than a man who's quiet because he doesn't have to be loud. No flex, no performance, no status update, just execution, silent, precise, ruthless. This kind of man doesn't walk into a room and scream for approval. He enters and the temperature changes because there's something about someone who doesn't need to explain why they're focused, why they move different, why they keep their circle small. It's not mystery, it's power. This is what separates the one who talks about building from the one who's already building, the one who broadcasts intentions versus the one who has results. If you're always explaining your grind, you haven't done it long enough. If you need applause before effort, you're not ready for transformation. Real dominance is quiet. The man who's truly about it doesn't chase credit. He becomes the reason the bar gets raised quietly. Consistently, without applause, without fanfare, without updates. There's a discipline that can't be tweeted, a focus that doesn't look good on camera, early mornings with no soundtrack, repetitions with no audience, rejections with no sympathy. Most won't survive that season. Most won't stay committed without claps. But the man who can do that, who can persist without praise, becomes untouchable. Because his fuel isn't admiration, it's obsession, not with being seen, but with being undeniable. The moment you stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing, everything changes. You stop asking for support, you stop waiting for encouragement, you stop trying to convince others. The mission becomes internal, quiet, deadly, precise. There's no wasted energy in proving anything. The results will handle that later. You just keep building, keep refining, keep attacking the day, not for attention, but for evolution. Too many are addicted to visibility. They need likes to validate effort, views to justify progress, compliments to feel strong. But what happens when no one's watching? What happens when no one claps? If your worth crumbles in silence, you never had strength to begin with. True grit shows when the spotlight vanishes, when it's just you, your work, your standards. That's where the divide happens. That's where the imitators fade and the legends grow. It's easy to post motivation, easy to talk tough, but when the camera's off and the room's dark and no one's texting you, who are you then? If your work ethic dies in privacy, it was never real. If your ambition fades in solitude, it was never yours. The man who thrives without noise is the one who owns his future because he doesn't need external flames. He is the fire. Quiet execution is terrifying to those who rely on noise because it exposes the truth. They're not really building, they're performing. They dress like discipline, speak like effort, move like consistency, but it's hollow, thin, because when no one's watching, they stall, they coast, they fade. But the one who's real, he goes harder when no one sees. He sharpens in silence. He rises when no one believes. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be called distant, cold, arrogant. Let them say what they want. That's the cost of silence. It makes average minds uncomfortable. They need noise to understand purpose. But you don't need understanding. You need results. Let them wonder what you're planning. Let them speculate why you're not posting every workout, every win, every milestone. Because the only answer they need is this: you're not done yet. The loudest room rarely holds the strongest men, because real power doesn't posture, it doesn't scream, it doesn't dance for claps. It's composed, controlled, focused, and that's what makes it lethal. When you don't know what someone's capable of because they never told you, that's dangerous, that's dominance, that's the kind of energy that can't be measured by words, only by impact. Every time you're tempted to explain your grind, don't. Every time you feel the urge to share your next move, don't. Let your silence become a mystery. Let your absence spark curiosity. Let your execution do the talking, because when the world finally sees what you've been building, there won't be any questions. There'll be respect, quiet, unshakable, earned. This isn't about hiding. This isn't about becoming invisible. It's about choosing power over performance, depth over display, intensity over approval. The man who owns his silence owns his outcomes. Because every second he's not explaining himself is a second he's building leverage, advantage, mastery. This silence isn't passive. It's strategic. It's you saying, I don't need your permission. Go all in. It's you choosing the long game. It's you deciding that showing the work is more important than saying the words. When others broadcast ambition, you refine skill. When others post dreams, you craft discipline. While they're entertaining their audience, you're constructing your empire, and make no mistake, they'll notice. Eventually, they always do. You'll walk different. Breathe different, move different, because silence leaves clues. Your presence will carry weight that words never could. Because you didn't talk about what you were becoming, you became it. Step by step, cut by cut, sacrifice by sacrifice. You'll feel alone sometimes. You'll wonder if the silence is worth it. But that's the test. Can you keep going without reassurance? Can you grind without echo? Can you lead without applause? That's the difference between someone pretending to be great and someone who can't be ignored. Legends aren't loud because they don't need to be. Their work shouts in boardrooms, in gyms, in every space they walk into, not because they talk more, but because they did more. Your silence will offend some. It will confuse others. Good. Let it. Let your progress speak a language only the disciplined understand. You don't owe explanations. You owe excellence. You don't owe transparency. You owe results. Let them watch. Let them guess. Let them gossip. Because when you arrive, fully formed, forged in the unseen, there won't be a soul who doubts you.
That is enough, because what you build with your own hands can never be taken by shallow compliments or fleeting validation. And there's something raw primal even about the physical body becoming living proof. You look in the mirror and it tells a story no one can rewrite, a story of endurance, of intention, of repetition stacked in darkness while others waited for inspiration. It isn't vanity, it's evidence. When the body hardens, it reflects more than discipline. It becomes the outward armor of an internal revolution, not to show off, not to boast, but to serve as undeniable testimony that you followed through long after enthusiasm disappeared. There's no shortcut to what the body reveals. You either move iron or you don't. You either fuel with precision or you fall victim to the soft decay of convenience. Every muscle fiber carries memory. The muscle remembers the days you pushed when others coasted. The muscle remembers the nights you stretched limits when your mind whispered defeat. This is where transformation lives, not in theory, not in talk, but in the blood vessels that expanded under pressure, in the sweat that soaked floors no one else walked on. You don't sculpt a masterpiece without pressure. You don't craft resilience without fatigue. And you sure as hell don't become a monument without confronting your breaking point again and again and again. There's nothing abstract about lifting, nothing vague about controlled failure under a loaded bar. You don't need applause. You need gravity. You don't need company. You need tension. It's not glamorous, but it's truth, because everything you carry outside the gym gets lighter when you choose heavier burdens inside it. You begin to approach life differently, not because you've gained strength, but because you've proven that you can create it under load, in silence, through will. Most don't get that. They're still waiting for their body to change through wishing. Still caught in the illusion that reading about strength will make them powerful. They watch videos, they save workout routines, they like posts, but they don't show up. Not consistently, not when it's hard, not when progress crawls and soreness bites and nothing seems to move. And that's why they stay stuck, because the physical body isn't just a reflection, it's a decision. It says, I refuse comfort if it costs progress. It says, I earn every inch. That decision, repeated daily, builds not just muscle, but momentum. When your body becomes something others can't ignore, it's not ego, it's evidence of hours they didn't see, early alarms, measured portion, focused sessions where distractions weren't allowed through the door. You weren't louder, you were hungrier, you weren't luckier, you were relentless. That's the difference between the crowd and the few who rise above it. They don't negotiate with the mirror. They don't beg for results. They command them through pattern, through pressure, through perseverance. And here's the truth they don't want to hear: if your body looks average, it's because your choices have been. If you lack power, it's because you haven't developed. If you carry softness, it's because you've embraced softness. You haven't built the structure that can hold legacy, and no amount of branding, no expensive wardrobe, no polished words will compensate for a weak frame. You can fake ambition online. You can fake knowledge in conversation. But you cannot fake strength. You cannot fake symmetry. You cannot fake durability. This is why training matters, not just for the physique, but for the grit it builds underneath, for the voice it silences inside you, the one that used to question whether you were capable. That voice dies under iron. That doubt drowns in lactic acid. That insecurity evaporates when you keep going after your arms tremble, when your heart hammers and your lungs scream, and still you don't stop. That's not fitness. That's rebirth. That's what forges something immortal. When you commit to transforming your body, you're not chasing aesthetics. You're chasing control. You're saying, this is mine now. No one hands me power. I build it. You start walking differently, not arrogantly, but confidently. Your eyes carry a different weight, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you've endured what most avoid. That changes a man permanently. He no longer needs to say anything. He becomes the proof others wish they had. Even your presence shifts. People feel something different. They can't quite name it, but they know it. They sense the discipline that drips from you like heat. They sense the precision in how you carry yourself, the calm intensity in how you move. That comes from days you could have quit, from mornings you could have skipped, from meals you could have cheated, but you didn't. And now the dividends pay in full, not in applause, but in power. And the thing about physical change is that it multiplies. Once you take command of your health, your fuel, your rest, your output, everything else starts falling into place. Your standards go up. You tolerate less nonsense. You recognize energy leaks quicker. You start moving with purpose, not rushing, not flexing, just executing, because you know what it takes. You know what it costs. You know the hours carved into every muscle group. The body becomes a filter. Weakness starts to stand out. Chaos becomes obvious. You stop being seduced by empty pleasures. You stop negotiating with distractions. Why? Because you've built something with your own pain. You've traded ease for edge. You've replaced excuses with exactness. And you don't want to go back. You've felt power, real power. And you know it doesn't come from motivation. It comes from movement. And now every choice, every bite, every step becomes either fuel or friction. Either it helps build the machine or it helps rust it. That level of clarity is addictive. You stop chasing balance and start pursuing excellence, not because someone told you to, not because a coach yelled at you, but because your bones remember what it felt like to be weak. And you never want to feel that way again. When your body changes, your identity changes. You start trusting yourself, not just in fitness, but in life. You set boundaries faster. You lead better. You handle chaos smoother. Because if you can control your training, your intake, your recovery, then everything else becomes manageable. Challenges become puzzles, not problems. Stress becomes manageable, not overwhelming. That's the ripple effect of physical transformation. It makes you harder to break, not just in body, but in mind, in decisions, in direction. It's not about being better than others. It's about being better than your former self, about leaving behind the scattered, unfocused version of you that accepted anything, that skipped sessions, that didn't measure intake, that let emotions decide outcomes. That version doesn't belong anymore. He can't survive at this altitude. The air's too thin. The pressure's too high. This is where giants breathe. If you're still waiting for perfect conditions to start, you'll never begin. If you're still believing the lie that you need to feel ready, you've already lost. Readiness doesn't come before the work. It's a side effect, earned, not granted. And the sooner you accept that your body is either becoming stronger or weaker each day, nothing in between, the sooner you'll move with urgency. The clock is ticking. And it isn't asking how you feel. You don't have to be gifted. You don't need elite genetics. You don't need the best equipment. You need consistency. You need clarity. You need hunger. The man who lifts with fire in his eyes will always outlast the man who lifts for praise. That's the secret. That's the unlock. Burn for your own evolution, not for applause. Eventually, the results will be too loud to ignore. They'll speak for you in every room, on every stage, without a word. And when that happens, remember this. No one can take what you built through effort. No one can steal what you earned through suffering. You'll be known, not because you shouted, not because you posed, but because you became fully, relentlessly, physically. Fully, relentlessly, physically. But even with a battle-hardened shell, if your mind remains fragile, you're still a prisoner. Chains don't always look like steel. They often sound like excuses. That voice whispering reasons to delay, deflect, or doubt doesn't disappear just because your frame grew stronger. In fact, it gets smarter, louder, more convincing. If you haven't disciplined your inner world, all that external progress becomes temporary, vulnerable, unstable. You can't deadlift your way out of insecurity. You can't out-sprint a weak identity. Eventually, everything collapses back to the level of your mental resilience, or lack of it. You wake up with it. That voice, before the sun, before the grind, it greets you with comfort, disguised as reason. Just today, skip the routine. You're drained. It won't matter. That voice is ancient. It's persistent, and every man hears it. The difference between average and dominant is simple: who listens and who doesn't. The mind left untrained becomes your greatest traitor. It knows your fears. It knows your patterns. It feeds on hesitation. It thrives on softness. And it's fluent in delay. Some call it self-preservation. Others call it overthinking. But it's just sabotage with good manners. You think you're being careful when in fact you're being conquered. The most dangerous battles are the silent ones, fought in your head while the world sees nothing. No blood, no noise, just a quiet war, and far too often a quiet surrender. You nod, you wait, you promise yourself later. But the mind remembers. It records every retreat, and those choices become identity. Not because of failure, but because you stopped even attempting. Reclaiming that ground requires more than motivation. It demands ruthless awareness. You must catch the lie mid-sentence and crush it before it spreads. You must notice when your brain tries to rationalize weakness and reply with aggression. You must break the pattern instantly. No debate, no pause, no gentle negotiation. It wins. Again, and every time it wins, it becomes stronger until your thoughts no longer need to argue. You just obey them. And in that moment, you're no longer a man of action. You're a puppet, pulled by strings you forged yourself. But that can change, not through hope, but through repetition. Training your mindset is no different from sculpting your body. It's resistance applied deliberately over time. You feel the pressure. You move forward anyway. You notice the fear. You choose the hard path regardless. You observe the craving for distraction. You double down on focus. That's not easy, but it's necessary. Because no one's coming to rescue you from your own thoughts. No one's stepping in to reroute your internal compass. You either take the reins or you drift. Drifting looks like business without direction, like action without results. Like planning without execution. You stay productive while achieving nothing. Why? Because you're letting comfort steer. You're chasing the path of least resistance, dressed up as balance. But nothing legendary came from balance. Greatness is built in imbalance, choosing to sacrifice comfort for control. And that starts with mastery over your mental environment. If your head isn't in order, your life never will be. Clarity becomes your weapon. The clearer your purpose, the quieter the noise. Most distractions only tempt those who forgot their mission. When you know exactly what you want, when you've burned every exit, the mind starts aligning. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens every moment you override that impulse to quit. Every time you defy your comfort, every time you sit in discomfort and choose intensity over ease. That's how a ruthless mentality is built, not born. Emotional turbulence is inevitable. You'll wake up low. You'll face betrayal. You'll feel burnout. But emotions aren't your guide. They're your signals. They inform. They don't dictate. A man who lets feelings determine decisions will always remain a servant to circumstance. But one who acts despite chaos becomes immovable. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about transcending it. Using it, channeling it into momentum. Not for show, but for structure. Too many wait to feel right before acting. They wait for clarity, motivation, excitement. But the strongest among us act while uncertain, move while afraid, grind while uninspired. Because they've understood the most powerful truth. You don't need to feel like doing it. You need to do it. That's it. The emotion catches up later. Maybe. But if it doesn't, you still moved. And that movement separates the makers from the moaners. There's no pride in overthinking, no glory in hesitation, no reward for potential unrealized. The world doesn't remember what you could have done. It only recalls what you built. The scoreboard doesn't care about anxiety, doubt, or mood. It counts results. Did you show up? Did you deliver? Did you overcome? Or did you let your thoughts negotiate your way out of effort? Silence the debate. Don't entertain internal dialogue that questions your path. When your values are clear, your response should be automatic. No conversation, no delay. Just action, like breath, like heartbeat. Reflex, not hesitation. And that's what mental strength is. Not shouting affirmations, not hyping yourself up. It's eliminating the option of retreat. But that comes at a cost. You lose your excuses. You lose your pity. You lose the comfort of sympathy. People won't understand why you're so locked in, why you don't compromise, why you refuse the easy route. That's fine. Let them misunderstand. You don't owe anyone your doubt. You owe them results. And more importantly, you owe yourself redemption. From every time you let fear win, victory begins internally. You must first believe you can hold the line. That when it's dark, you'll keep marching. That when it hurts, you'll lean in. That when nothing makes sense, you'll still take the next step. This doesn't mean you won't falter. It means you won't stay down. It means you won't negotiate your destiny just because your feelings shifted. Let others ride emotional roller coasters. You build tracks, solid, unshakable, straight toward what you declared. You become the type who doesn't need reminders, who doesn't rely on deadlines, who doesn't require supervision. Because you become your own architect, your own regulator, your own furnace. No one burns harder than the man who's fueled by purpose over pleasure. The man who's unchained from the urge to feel right before doing what's required. And eventually you'll be tested. Life will press harder. The noise will increase. The temptations will evolve. But so will your fortitude. Because while others are chasing control over their environment, you've already claimed dominion over the only thing that matters, your response. You can't change the storm, but you can train to walk through it. So cold, broken, and still moving forward. That's what separates the ordinary from the exceptional. Not talent, not resources, not connections, but the ability to direct yourself daily without emotion steering the wheel. To rise when everything says stay down. To commit when quitting looks easier. To lead yourself before you try to lead anyone else. If you can't command your thoughts, you'll forever be at the mercy of your environment. But if you master the internal war, there's nothing external that can dismantle you. Not critics, not failure, not heartbreak, nothing. Because when the mind is anchored, the storm becomes background noise. And you keep building. Without apology, without pause, without waiting. No conclusion needed. Your mind is already made up, or it isn't. There's no wrap-up speech, no applause, no final summary waiting to hand you discipline. You either take control or stay controlled. You either move now or stall again. You've read enough, you've heard enough. Now go prove it.